The Arctic is a graveyard of lost things. Ships swallowed by ice, civilizations buried beneath centuries of snow, and flights that vanish without a trace. For 40 years, Flight A107 was one such mystery, a passenger plane that disappeared on Christmas Eve in 1976, leaving behind only whispers of what might have happened. No wreckage, no distress signal, just a haunting absence. Until now, a satellite scan recently picked up a metallic anomaly deep in the Alaskan ice. Researchers believed they had finally located the lost aircraft. But as the excavation began, something fell off, strange patterns. In the ice, tracks where no human had ever stepped, and eyes watching from the frozen expanse. The truth hidden inside that plane wasn't just a story of survival. It was something far stranger, something that defied logic and redrew the boundary between man and nature. What the team uncovered didn't just solve a decades-old mystery. It changed everything. Jason Wright stood at the edge of his office window in Anchorage, watching snow drift lazily past the glass. At 58, he'd spent more than 3 decades studying Alaska's unforgiving wilderness. But nothing in his long career had prepared him for the satellite images now spread across his desk. The metallic anomaly, first detected by military satellites in January 2016, had initially seemed like just another routine investigation. But as Jason studied the preliminary scans more closely, a chill crept down his spine, one that had nothing to do with the cold. Dr. Wright. Sarah Chin, his research assistant, appeared in the doorway, her usually composed demeanor tinged with urgency. The thermal imaging results just came in. You need to see this. Together, they pored over the new data. The shape was unmistakable. The distinct outline of an aircraft's tail fin, buried deep within the ice at a precise 40-degree angle. Jason's hands trembled slightly as he overlaid the dimensions with known aircraft specifications. It matches, Sarah whispered. Flight AE-107. The name hung heavy in the air. Every Alaskan researcher knew about Flight AE-107, the passenger plane that had vanished without a trace. On Christmas Eve 1976, 150 souls lost to the wilderness. Their fate had remained one of aviation's most persistent mysteries. "Get me Thompson at the National Science Foundation," Jason said, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "And contact Dr. Elena Martinez at Wildlife Services. We're going to need her expertise." Within days, the operation evolved from a basic anomaly investigation into one of the largest recovery missions in Alaskan history. The National Science Foundation fast-tracked the funding request, and the U.S. Air Force offered logistical support. Yet, even as everything moved into place, Jason couldn't shake the feeling that what they were about to uncover was far more than a simple crash site. Elena Martinez arrived at the Anchorage briefing room on a bitter January morning, her silver-streaked hair pulled back in a no-nonsense braid. At 62, she was one of the world's foremost experts on Alaskan wildlife behavior, especially large predators. The room buzzed with anticipation. Glaciologists, aviation experts, forensic archaeologists, and survival specialists filled every seat. The site is approximately 80 miles northeast of Anchorage, Jason said, pointing to a topographical map. "We're looking at average temperatures around -42 degrees Celsius and wind speeds up to 18 meters per second. This won't be easy." Elena studied the satellite imagery with particular interest. "The ice field's topology is unusual," she noted, tracing a series of irregular lines with her finger. "These patterns here, they don't follow typical glacial movement." "What are you thinking?" Jason asked. "I'm not sure yet," Elena replied thoughtfully. "But in my experience, when nature deviates from the expected, there's usually a reason." The team spent the next week preparing for deployment. 84 tons of specialized equipment were assembled: thermal drilling units, ground-penetrating radar, mobile laboratory facilities, and enough supplies to sustain a 30-person team for 2 months. Among the crew was Tom Harrison, a seasoned ice pilot who had flown search and rescue missions in Alaska for 25 years. "I remember when AE-107 went down," Tom shared during one of the planning sessions. "I was just a kid, but my dad was part of the original search team. He never got over not finding them. Said the weather that Christmas was the worst he'd ever seen." The convoy set out in early February, a procession of heavy-duty vehicles, crawling across the frozen landscape. Elena rode in the lead vehicle with Jason, her eyes constantly scanning the horizon. Something about the terrain tugged at her scientific instincts. The way the snow drifted, the odd patterns in the ice formations. "Stop," she called out suddenly. Jason signaled for the convoy to halt. Elena pointed to a seemingly random patch of snow. "See how the surface texture changes? There's a reason animals aren't crossing this section." Further investigation revealed a dangerous ice cavity large enough to swallow a vehicle whole. Elena's observation had likely saved lives and equipment, but it also raised questions. How had she spotted it so quickly? Years of studying predator behavior, she explained with a slight smile. They leave clues, if you know how to read them. The team established base camp within 18 hours, a small city of reinforced tents and portable structures designed to withstand the brutal Arctic conditions. The wreckage site lay less than a kilometer away, marked by the barely visible tip of a tail fin protruding from the IC. It was during the initial survey that they noticed the bobcat. The animal's presence was unusual. While bobcats weren't unheard of in Alaska, they typically stayed in more forested areas. This one, a large female accompanied by two nearly grown cubs, seemed completely at ease in the exposed ice field. "Remarkable," Elena murmured, observing them through binoculars. "They're perfectly adapted to these conditions. Look at the size of those paws, much larger than typical bobcat prints." The animals maintained a consistent distance from the camp, neither approaching nor fleeing. Even more striking was their behavior around the crash site. The mother bobcat would pace certain areas with deliberate care, her cubs following precisely in her footsteps. "They're avoiding the weak spots in the ice," Elena realized. But this goes beyond normal predator awareness. It's almost as if she didn't finish the thought, but she didn't need to. The entire team had noticed how the bobcat's movements seemed to map out safe passages through the treacherous terrain. The actual recovery operation was painstaking work. Engineers deployed thermal elements with surgical precision, careful not to disturb the delicate balance of the ice structure. Every step was calculated, every movement measured. The bobcats remained constant observers. Their presence became so familiar that the team began referring to them as the guides. When they finally breached the fuselage, the scene inside stopped everyone in their tracks. The cabin was perfectly preserved, a haunting time capsule of that Christmas Eve in 1976. Magazines lay open on seatback trays, their pages frozen mid-turn. A flight attendant's service cart stood in the aisle, coffee cups still arranged on top, their contents now small cylindrical blocks of ice. But it was the personal effects that struck the deepest emotional chords. A child's doll with carefully braided yarn hair. A wallet containing photos of smiling families, letters written but never sent. Each item told a story. Each possession represented a life interrupted. In the cockpit, they found the captain's logbook. Its final entry described multiple engine failures and rapidly deteriorating weather conditions. More revealing was a flight attendant's diary, recovered from a storage compartment. The entries, spanning 18 days after the crash, painted a picture of incredible courage and heartbreaking reality. December 25, 1976 dawn, if you can call this light dawn. 22 survivors out of 150. The impact was devastating, but the real killer is the cold. So many died in their sleep that first night that we've gathered in the first-class cabin. It's more intact, easier to heat. Captain Matthews is organizing us, rationing the emergency supplies. Julie, the other surviving flight attendant, keeps trying to make people comfortable. How do you comfort people who've lost everything on Christmas Day? December 27th, 1976. The radio isn't working. No sign of rescue. Captain Matthews says, "We're at least 100 miles off our last reported position. The storm that brought us down." He said it was unlike anything he'd ever seen. "It threw all the instruments off that we can hear animals outside sometimes. Strange sounds. Not wolves, something else." December 30th, 1976 down to 19 now. The cold is unbearable. Julie noticed something odd today. There are tracks in the snow around the plane, but they seem to be keeping other predators away. Captain Matthews thinks we might have crashed in the territory of some large cats. Somehow, that's comforting. January 5th, 1977, only 12 left. We're out of emergency rations. Julie didn't wake up this morning. The strange thing is, We found fresh kills near the plane, rabbits, small game. As if something is leaving them for us. Captain Matthews says that's impossible, but we're long past believing in impossible things. The diary entries continued, increasingly uncertain about the dates, but maintaining a clear and vivid record of events. The final entry was dated January 11th, 1977. I'm the last one now. The others are all gone. But I'm not alone. There. Out there. I can see their eyes in the dark. Not threatening. Watching. Waiting. I understand now why they've stayed close. They're the guardians of this place. They know what it means to survive here. To lose family here. The mother cat brought another rabbit today. I couldn't reach it. Too weak to move now. I think she understood. She sat there in the snow for hours, just watching. I'm not afraid anymore. When the end comes, I won't be alone. Elena spent days analyzing the diary entries alongside known bobcat behavior patterns. These cats, she explained to Jason one evening, are displaying traits that go beyond normal territorial behavior. She pointed to a passage in the diary. It mentions them bringing food to the crash site. We've documented the same behavior today. She pulled up photographs, images of small animal carcasses found at regular intervals around the excavation area. At first, we assumed they were just abandoned kills, she said. But look at the placement. Always in visible locations, and always during our meal breaks. The team's wildlife photographers had captured remarkable footage. The mother bobcat would often appear at the edge of the work area just before dangerous weather rolled in, her posture visibly tense until the team took shelter. Her cubs mirrored her behavior, learning patterns that seemed instinctive, passed down through generations. You're suggesting these are descendants of the same cats mentioned in the diary? Jason asked, skeptical but clearly intrigued. Bobcats typically live 10 to 12 years in the wild, Elena replied. We're looking at 4, maybe 5 generations. But yes, I believe these cats are the direct descendants of those that witnessed the crash. And I believe they've inherited not just territory, but behavior. As the excavation progressed, physical evidence began to support the diary's account. The distribution of supplies and bodies suggested organized survival efforts. Small caches of food were discovered at regular intervals around the crash site, some still containing preserved remains of small game. But the most stunning discovery came 6 weeks into the operation. While analyzing ice core samples, Sarah Chin noticed something unusual in the layers. These striations, she pointed out to Jason and Elena, they're not random. Look at the pattern. It's as if something has been traveling the same paths around the crash site, year after year, wearing grooves into the ice. Further analysis confirmed it, decades of layered tracks, generations of bobcats following the same routes their ancestors had taken. The patterns matched perfectly with the safe passages the current bobcats use to navigate the ice field. They've been maintaining a vigil, Elena realized. For 40 years, they've been protecting this site. The recovery operation concluded in late March. The remains of Flight E-107's passengers and crew were finally returned to their families, along with personal effects preserved in the ice for over 4 decades. The diary, now a crucial piece of aviation history, was donated to the Smithsonian Institution, but it was the story of the bobcats that captured the public imagination in ways no one had expected. Wildlife documentaries were filmed, research papers were published, and the site became a focal point for scientists studying animal intelligence and interspecies behavior. Elena Martinez devoted the rest of her career to studying the phenomenon. She established a research station near the crash site, documenting the bobcats' continued presence and patterns. The mother and her cubs remained even after the excavation equipment had been removed, faithfully maintaining the same ancestral routes 0.5 years after the discovery. Elena sat in her small research cabin, watching the newest generation of cubs learn the same paths their ancestors had walked. The mother bobcat, now graying around her muzzle, still made her daily rounds, still brought small offerings to the memorial erected at the crash site. Jason Wright, now semi-retired, had joined her for the anniversary of the recovery. Together, they watched the sunset cast hues of pink and gold across the ice. You know what I think? Elena said softly. I think that first mother bobcat recognized something in those survivors, not as prey or predators, but as living beings struggling to survive in a harsh world. And somehow, She passed that recognition down through generations. Jason nodded. An inheritance of compassion. More than that, Elena replied. A reminder that even in our darkest moments, we're not alone. Those passengers had spent their final days watching the movement of those magnificent creatures, drawing quiet comfort from their presence. And for 40 years, the cats had kept their vigil, protecting the site, marking the safe passages, leaving their offerings as if on cue. The mother bobcat appeared at the edge of their view, her cubs tumbling through the snow behind her. She paused, locking eyes with Elena, an inscrutable gaze that had captivated researchers for years. Some might call it anthropomorphizing, Jason mused, seeing human qualities in animal behavior. Or maybe, Elena suggested, we're finally recognizing that compassion isn't exclusively human, that in this harsh, beautiful wilderness, all living things are connected by something deeper than science can fully explain. The bobcat led her cubs along one of their ancestral paths, their paws falling into grooves worn smooth by generations. Before them, as they disappeared into the gathering dusk, their silhouettes briefly cut across the Arctic sky. Elena thought of the final words in the flight attendant's diary. I'm not afraid anymore. When the end comes, I won't be alone. In the years that followed, the story of Flight E-107 and its feline guardians became more than a tale of tragedy and survival. It became a testament to the mysterious bonds between all living creatures. A reminder that even in the most desolate places, compassion can take root and flourish across generations. The bobcats remained, adapting to the changing climate and teaching each new generation what it means to remember the paths of their ancestors remain well worn. And on quiet evenings, when the aurora borealis dances across the Arctic sky, the bobcats can still be seen making their rounds, eternal guardians of a place where the boundaries between human and animal, tragedy and hope, have blurred and transformed into something extraordinary. Scientists continue to study the site and its unique inhabitants, but some mysteries remain unexplained. Perhaps that's how it should be. A reminder that in the vast wilderness of Alaska, there are still stories that defy understanding, still bonds that transcend our definitions, and still moments of grace that echo through generations, human and animal alike. Today, a small plaque stands at the crash site, commemorating not only the passengers and crew of Flight E-17, but also the remarkable creatures that watched over them for nearly half a century. It bears a simple inscription, in memory of the 150 souls aboard Flight A-107 December 24, 1976, and in honor of their unexpected guardians, who taught us that compassion knows no bounds, and that even in our darkest hours, we are never truly alone. The bobcats still roam their ancestral paths, their presence a living memorial to a moment when the divide between human and animal blurred, when something profound and mysterious took root in the ice and snow. Their story continues to inspire researchers, wildlife experts, and visitors from around the world. A reminder that, in the harsh beauty of the Alaskan wilderness, some bonds transcend time, species, and even death itself. As Elena Martinez wrote in her final research paper before retiring. In studying the bobcats of Flight A-107, we've learned something profound about the nature of compassion and memory. These creatures have shown that empathy and guardianship are not confined by species or time. In our increasingly divided world, the simple act of recognizing and responding to the suffering of others, regardless of their form, may be the purest expression of life's interconnectedness. The mother bobcat and her cubs remain. Their daily routines continue, a living testament to that truth. And in their watchful eyes, observers still catch glimpses of something ancient and wise, an inheritance of compassion passed down through generations, one that continues to touch and transform all who encounter it.